Hi friends, welcome to this latest episode of the Nationalist View, and we have with us a very special guest, Mr. David Vance from United Kingdom. David, thank you so much for joining the show.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure to be with you. Thanks for having me back.
So David is a geopolitics expert from United Kingdom. We'll be giving a detailed bio in the description box. We'll also be sharing links of some of his works. He's a prolific writer, commentator, and he brings in perspective on a lot of issues. David, we're going to talk about two issues today broadly. One is the internal political situation in Britain, and second is how Iran conflict is impacting Britain. So let's get on with the first. We have recently seen the local council elections held in Britain. So could you decode that for our viewers that why they are important and what is the general political mood they are indicating? Because as we are recording this, so I was just reading about half
Mhm.
an hour back, a report was posted on some of the British media platforms that Keir Starmer is under intense pressure from his own party MPs to resign, and he is refusing to step down. So, in light of these developments, if you could decode these local council elections and the current political mood in Britain.
Okay, so put very, very simply, the significance of the English county elections, which ordinarily wouldn't be that significant, are very significant because it was an opportunity for people to come out and pass judgment on the Labour government. And Aaron, what happened was that it was a calamity, a catastrophe for the Labour politicians who were standing for election. Almost 1,500 of them lost their seats. They lost dozens of councils. Um, Even in some of their traditional heartlands, they lost councils. There was also elections in Scotland and Wales. They lost in those as well. So in Wales, for example, this is interesting. In Wales, Labour hasn't lost an election there in 100 years. 100 years. They lost, and they lost heavily. In fact, the leader of the Welsh Labour Party, she lost her seat, which is unheard of. The actual First Minister of Welsh Labour, she's gone. So the significance of this lay in the fact that here we've seen a fundamental sea change in British politics. The old conservative Labour choice is just blown away. And what you've now got is Reform, which is Nigel Farage party, on the right, which did extremely well. And on the left, you got the Green Party, which made some inroads, which did, even though they are basically Marxist lunatics. So it's a realignment of British politics, and it's resulted in, as a time of you and me talking, and you're right to say it, Aaron, Keir Starmer is in deep, deep trouble, and I suggest he will be resigning sooner rather than later.
So, this honeymoon with the Labour Party and also with Keir Starmer, so it seems to have got over, very quickly, very rapidly.
Yeah.
So, what exactly happened? What are the policies which Labour Party adopted, which actually backfired?
Yeah, that's a really good question, that, because he won a very large majority back in July of 2024. But by the end of July in 2024, there was a terrible stabbings of three young girls in a part of England. And his response to that was to basically, when British people were annoyed at these killings, he started to have people arrested because of what they said on social media, and is almost instantly, literally within a week or so, his popularity suddenly declined. And then they had their first budget, the first Labour budget, in the autumn of 2024. And what they did was they took away cold weather benefit payments from pensioners. Well, like, that's the opposite thing that you would expect a government to do. And then they promised they wouldn't raise taxes, and they increased taxes. So they were basically governing opposite to how they'd been campaigning. And honestly, I think all that's happened is they've never been able to get back into their stride. And the British economy is not doing well. All the problems we have in immigration are still there. So they've achieved nothing. And this last week was the first chance British people had to say, right, we will pass judgment. And so the love affair with Labour didn't last very long.
So, what is it that the conservatives are also not getting right? As decoded very well, that now the
Mm.
binary options of labor
Yeah,
in conservatives, so people are going beyond that, and now there are
yeah,
new options which are emerging, both right of the center as well as left
yeah,
of the center. So, what
yeah.
is it that conservatives are not, doing? As we say in India, like the Congress has not been the main, ruling party which
Mm,
used to be there and which has been now in a position and has
yeah,
lost most of the, provincial or the state level election also. And they recently lost, in West Bengal also very miserably.
yeah.
You see, one of the biggest provinces. So, uh, are conserv why, what is it that conservatives are not doing right? What's wrong with them also?
I think the actual fundamental problem with the Conservatives is this. They were in government for 14 years. And during those 14 years, they did not deliver as much as they should have delivered. And they changed their leadership. I mean, we've had one, two, three different conservative prime ministers in the space of 5 or 6 years. So I think they basically people got sick of the conservatives because they didn't govern as conservatives. I mean, that's the fundamental thing. If they'd have been conservatives, I think we'd have been okay, but they didn't. And so that's why Labour got elected. They got elected not because people liked Labour, it's because people despised the Conservatives. And then the Conservatives have brought a new leader in the form of a lady called Kemi Badenoch in, and she thinks she's turning things around, but she's not. Honestly, she has said in the last couple of days that the Conservatives are on the way back. Well, I study all the figures, right? I actually do look at the numbers. And in Scotland, in Wales, in England, in every area, the Conservatives have gone back. So I don't think that they're going to be coming back. Honestly, I think the binary choice is gone. And reform will replace the Conservatives. And I think the Greens are going to replace sort of Labour. And I think that's where we are.
So, if we look at now, you said a very interesting thing. I just want your take on this, that the Labour government has started behaving unlike Labour, and the Conservatives were behaving unlike Conservatives.
Yeah, that's
So,
right.
so are we living in a post-ideological world now? What do you think, especially in the realm of politics?
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a great point you make. Actually, we are we are living in this post-ideological world because Labour haven't governed as a traditional Labour government, and the Conservatives the same. But I think in this modern era, where we've got fast communications, I think what happens is the electorate get alienated very, very quickly. It happens very fast. And I think that's what's happened in the UK. We've got an electorate who do not have any confidence in the old binary politics of Conservative and Labour. And, we see people from those two old parties going off to join the new parties. So we're going through something which is probably historical, and it will result in a very, very different political situation in Britain in the next couple of years, unlike anything we've probably ever seen.
So, no, let's move on to a little bit towards Middle East, what we call
Yeah.
West Asia in this part of the world. So,
Yes.
the Iran conflict. So, my first question is that uh, Britain has been, blowing hot, blowing cold over, participating in this conflict.
Yeah.
How do you see so far the Labour government stand in terms of, whatever they have done in terms of Iran conflict? Have they done enough? Have they done the right thing? Should they have, played a more active role with the USA? What's your perspective and what is the mood on
Yeah.
the ground?
I mean, I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed of the British government because they should have helped our oldest ally, or one of our oldest allies is the United States. And all that President Trump wanted, he didn't want British warships going there. He just wanted for his bombers to have access to British bases and Diego Garcia out in the Indian Ocean and here in the UK as well. And he was denied that. And then, if you remember, there was an attack from on a British base in Cyprus, and the British response was, "Well, we didn't have any ships to go there. We didn't have." So it took 3 weeks, 3 weeks, Aaron, to get a destroyer from Britain to the Mediterranean, and then what happened? It broke down. It broke down. The freshwater system didn't stop working, so it had to go to Cyprus. It's showing that I'm afraid the British sort of military is now just a shadow of what it once was, and I feel bad about that. I mean, I do support the conflict with the Mullah regime in Tehran, if not least to try and give liberty to 90 million Iranians. That's my real thing about this. But then, I mean, I've got questions about President Trump. Why does President Trump treat Pakistan, of all countries, as a mediator? Pakistan's is working with China and working with Iran. I don't understand. So I don't understand a lot of what's happening. But from a British point of view, I felt we should have been much more supportive of one of our oldest allies. And it's shameful that Starmer chose to say it's not our war. I mean, it's all our war. Whether it's in India or wherever, America, wherever, we want to have peace and we want to have free trade and we want oil to move around the world. You can't have an Iranian regime hold the world, not just parts of it, to ransom. And Britain opted out of that. And I'm ashamed of Britain because we did.
So, no, how is this conflict affecting Britain, strategically, economically,
Yeah.
especially from the energy security point of view? And
Yeah.
is it also impacting inflation here? Has it started affecting, the day-to-day
Yeah.
lives of people in Britain? So, if you could,
Yes,
get
it's
some.
it's absolutely all of the things that you've just said. So it's the first thing has been the energy price hike. So to give you an example, the price that I pay for oil, I use oil to heat my home, has basically doubled, gone up by 100%, right? More generally in the economy, because diesel and stuff is used by lorries to serve the economy. Inflation is starting to, our inflation will go up and up and up. It's just that, as you understand, inflation doesn't just jump instantly. It takes it like a month, maybe 2 months. So the UK economy is being hurt very much by this. And yet, it doesn't have to be. Because again, this is where I criticize all governments, but particularly the Labour government. So the price of, if I buy a litre of petrol, it costs me, just to give you an idea, £1.50, British pound. Half of that is government duty, which is, in other words, the government imposes that on the raw cost of the oil. So if the government wanted, Aaron, our government could just instantly halve the price of oil, bring down inflation, take the pressure off the economy, and it doesn't, because the politicians are so greedy and stupid. They don't understand that they're benefiting off inflation. But anyone with any knowledge of economics knows that you can't do that for a long time. It's going to be very bad for the economy. I believe this economy will go into recession.
And is it also, like in many countries, like even in United States also, societies have become divided over a period of time, especially the way Iran has very
Yeah.
successfully run an information warfare
Yes.
and
Yep.
the misinformation and the disinformation campaign. So, and it's amazing to see that powers like United States, so they have even
Mhm.
been able to counter that information warfare. So that has left a lot of society is divided. Iran is being projected as a victim, whereas the Israel and the
Yep.
US, so they are projected as kind of basically they are the hunters and they are hunting down a victim. So
Yeah.
has it divided the British society also? What is at a social level? Are there different viewpoints? What is the mood?
Yeah, a great question. And I think the answer is that the Iranian regime's propaganda has been very effective. And so a lot of people here would say, why doesn't Trump just leave it alone? Just don't bully Iran. Even as you know, the 8th and 9th of January, the Iranian regime slaughtered about 40,000 of its own people. Horrible mass murder. And yet the propaganda has been so good that no one talks about that. I talk about that, but not many others do. And so I find it's very, very disturbing to see how Iran, which is a bad actor, definitely a bad actor in the region, a friend of note, should be a pariah state, next only to Pakistan, that it's been able to get away with it. But then the mainstream media has been in the Britain has been very much on the Iranian side. And what the mainstream media does is it tries to say, well, there are two different sides here, and we'll have to put the arguments for both sides. No, there's no argument for the Iranian side. They're a bunch of psychopathic, theocratic monsters. There's no equivalence between them and the United States or Israel, So yeah, it's disheartening to see it. And then because we live in real life political cycles, this all started back, as you know, the end of February. Now here we are in May, US going into political cycles. It's going to get tougher and tougher to end this one properly. But the only end that I want to see is the Mueller regime brought down to rubble and 90 million Iranians given their freedom. That's what I want. And honestly, anything less, any deal on nuclear stuff, that's not enough. It's not good enough for me. But that's just me.
So, no, there are a lot of voices which agree with you because ultimately Iran has become one of the fountainhead of Islamic terrorism, which is
Yeah.
affecting the world across the country.
Yep.
So, the bandage solutions will not help. It has to have, a complete surgery. So
Yes.
that's what needs to be done. So, my last question, David, is that if you look at overall, Britain, the we have discussed, so there are social challenge issues at the social level, there are issues at economic level, the political structure, it is also, or the body politic, it is also undergoing through a massive transition.
Yeah.
And we have seen issues like law and order, which are happening in a lot of places in Britain. And then earlier in the past we have discussed the issue of the fanatic Muslim sections
Yeah.
rising in Britain, and politics
Mm,
siding with them. So overall,
mm.
what is the direction which you see in the near future that Britain is taking? Uh, can
Yeah.
can it do the course correction? Does it need to do the course correction at a national level?
Yeah. Well, it has to happen at national level, the course correction. And you mentioned law and order, which is the most fundamental thing of all. The rule of law must prevail. Now, I saw, for example, a video which I put up on my social media. It took place in a part of UK called Birmingham, and it was radical Islamists, and they were pretending to do a mock execution of Prime Minister Modi. This you check it out on my David Vance on X, and I'm thinking to myself, how can this even be allowed? Everyone should be arrested. We cannot allow this cancer of radical Islam to grow and make things even worse. And the way we solve it is very simple. We just uphold the laws that we have. This is unlawful. These things must not happen. Just like the big marches through London in support of Hamas. These things must be stopped. But you need a government in power and a leader who understands that the course correction is crucial. And the sooner it happens, the better, before this country gets lost. And honestly, I'll be really honest with you. I think we've got a couple of years here to fix it. And what we saw last week is the right direction. But it needs to be that fundamental change that restores the rule of law and makes sure that we can all live peacefully together without the threat of terrorism, sort of a cloud over all of our lives. So, I live in hope. But hope makes a good breakfast and a poor supper. So we'll see what it's like at supper time.
No, thank you, David, for
Thank
taking
you.
time out from your busy schedule. And we'll be sharing. I'm again mentioning to our viewers, we'll be sharing some stellar work which David has done. The links for that, and you can also subscribe to his, Substack.
Yeah.
And we hope to host you back soon again, David. Thank you so much.
Thank you very,
Thank
thank
you.
you so much.
Thank you.